Blog Talk Radio.
Did you know there's a secret place to expand your mind? A place to escape the same old negative news? Welcome to Colombo Chronicles Live with Rose Colombo, award-winning author, cable TV and radio host, poet, and advocate for justice. Rose has been seen and heard on local and national TV and radio. She's consulted with victims of injustice for more than 20 years. Her articles have been published in major and local newspapers and magazines. Listen live as Rose Colombo welcomes prominent authors and experts to her podcast every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Pacific Time at blogtalkradio.com/Colombo Chronicles. You can call in and ask questions at 646-564-9742. Follow Rose Colombo every Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. on Colombo Chronicles Live at blogtalkradio.com/Colombo Chronicles.
Colombo Chronicles Live. Colombo is on their trail. Listen up at Colombo Chronicles Live.
Hi, everyone. This is the Rose Colombo, right here for you. And it's Wednesday, June 17th. It's 12 o'clock noon here on the West Coast. And wherever you are, whether you're listening on podcast or by phone, welcome to Colombo Chronicles, because today we have a very dynamic author. His name is David Mulatto, and this is a very timely book that he wrote, Left versus Right, a Black versus White. And he has a very colorful and well-experienced life because David Mulatto has a lot of experience having been of a mixed race. And let me tell you a little bit about David. As a young child, David listened to stories. He watched documentaries about the death and destruction of the Great War that it had caused. He struggled to understand why the human race would inflict so much pain upon itself. Growing up as a young brown boy, a child in a white culture, David spent his days trying to be part of the community that he was born into. Through these battles of wanting to fit in, wanting to be accepted as an equal, David struggled with trying to understand those who rejected what he wanted so desperately to be part of. And of course, that reflects the feelings of millions of people, and it goes back to the beginning of time when tribes were created and villages were created. So it started way back since the beginning of time, I think, when God created Adam and Eve, they procreated, and after intermixing, invading other villages, there were disparities between the races and the colors of skin. However, over a lifetime of adventures, the reality of human instinct unveiled itself to David through the trials and tribulations of his own struggles. It is these life's experiences that he writes about with full honesty and openness. This book is a book filled with analysis on why there are so many divisions within our culture. So it's very timely right now, a very important book, because in the United States and around the world, we are having the Black Lives Matter division of black and white, and the disparities that are happening, and the accusations of police brutality and against mainly black Americans. And so that has to be addressed, but it has to be addressed peacefully. It has to be addressed through city, county, and state, in every state. And because we can't throw everybody into one big pot and say they're all bad, because we have bad apples in our families. We have bad apples in our political arenas. We have bad apples in businesses, bad apples CEOs. There's all sorts of bad apples. So we can't throw everybody into one big pot, but we do need to get to the core of the problem so that we can find the solution and people can live peacefully. More about David Mulatto. As the nation fights for its identity and its soul, there are many who fear for the future. It seems that the tides of conflict are rising. David Mulatto believes, regardless of ideology, visual appearance, gender, or political persuasion, if we don't figure out how to incorporate our differences in a way that allows each individual to hold their principles, but also work for common good, then past mistakes may be repeated. And I'm going to take a break, and I'll come back, tell you a little bit more about David Mulatto, and then we will talk to him and see if he can answer your questions and mine, which I'm sure he can. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back in just a moment.
Howdy, folks. Just stopped in by my favorite restaurant, the Horseshoe Cafe. I highly recommend the home-cooked hot meals and piping hot coffee. In fact, it reminds me of my mom's home cooking when I was growing up. The customer service is excellent. Be sure to save room for the world's best desserts. Make sure you try a slice of fresh homemade pie. The Horseshoe Cafe is located at 154 East 4th Street in the heart of Benson, Arizona. The Horseshoe Cafe is right outside of Tombstone, Sierra Vista, and Tucson. Sometimes Patty and Mike stop by to welcome you. The staff at the Horseshoe Cafe looks forward to seeing you. Stop by to eat or relax. Cool down in the desert with a cold beer or your favorite cocktail. That's the Horseshoe Cafe. Oh, and don't tell anyone I told you, but some people think it's haunted. One thing is for sure. Be sure to bring your appetite.
That's right. Be sure to bring your appetite and be sure to get a slice of that homemade pie. It's fantastic. And speaking of that, food, it's lunchtime, so grab a bite to eat, sit down, relax, and we're going to talk to our very special guest, David Mulatto, who wrote a dynamic book, Left versus Right, Black versus White, and A Nation Divided. He was born of mixed parents in London. And let me tell you a little bit more about David before we say hello. David Mulatto was born in 1954. His parents were from different cultures and colors. Once born, they abandoned him. They created the child they created, and they severed all parental ties. And as such, became a ward of the state, and he was classified as a mixed race. Racism, isolation, failure to fit in are just some of the many struggles that are prevalent in the lives of those who visually stand out. David was no exception to that rule. Throughout young adulthood, lack of education and work opportunity magnified by racial perceptions made the prospects of upward mobility seem near impossible for David and many like him. However, the good news is that the once abandoned child survived many of life's challenges and is now experiencing a full, diverse, productive life, confirming that there is hope for each of us regardless of our beginnings. And I saw a sign that I always look at when I pass by. It said, hope is not canceled. So if you wish to have an honest discussion about the conflicts that are happening in today's world, then stay tuned because we are now going to speak to David Mulatto, the author of Left versus Right and Black versus White, A Nation Divided. Hi, David. Welcome back to Colombo Chronicles. It's been a long time, but we're so excited to have you during this timely period in our nation.
Well, I thank you very much for inviting me. This is a topic that obviously is very close to my heart and I'm passionate about, so I'm always complimented when I'm invited to have a conversation about it.
I think it's great. And,
yeah.
You know, it's a topic that's on everybody's mind because not everybody's racist, but racism, you know, is part of an individual's perceptions. and it can happen in any race, So it's exciting to even learn more about it. So what did you learn as a youngster growing up in London about World War II, which I had spoken about to our audience, and basically black-white relations in Great Britain, Europe, and the United States?
Well, when I grew up, when I was a child, I was of mixed race, and in the late 50s in England, there was no gray area. The British government had invited menial labor to come to the country from the West Indies because they couldn't fill the jobs that they needed filled. So what you had is a huge influx of West Indian, Jamaican, Trinidad and Tobago people coming to London to work, and it infiltrated the white culture, the very British white culture. And so what you had a clash of cultures. And what identified this clash of who was on whose side was obviously color. So you made the assumption based on your color that was the side you were on. Well, out of that merging came a lot of mixed race kids that, obviously I was one of them. And when you were a mixed race kid in the 60s, the late 50s and 60s, there was not like America. You're not graded. You are black. If you're either white or you're black. So if people are racist or if people are prejudiced, they're prejudiced to you the same way they are to people that are a lot darker than you. So I spent my whole childhood trying to fit in because the thing is I knew I was British. I didn't identify with anything else. Yet my color kept pushing me back, and people who associated me with my color kept pushing me back. And then I learned history, and I'd listen to people about the war, and I'd listen to pre-war Germany, where people in free elections voted for the German Nationalist Party in free elections. And I just always struggled with the thought, why would people vote against their own interests? Why would people vote for people that cause such destruction when all I wanted to do as a child be part of this culture? And I think what always stuck in my mind is, why do people vote for their own demise? Why don't they see what they have? Because I wanted to be part of something. And then, the German people in pre-war Germany voted for something which was going to destroy something that they were part of, that they could have made very positive. So it was always a quandary for me. And, that was my question, that was my link, that why would somebody in a free society that maybe not everything is perfect, but why would people vote for their own destruction? It was a question that just always stuck in my mind.
Well, it's a question that stuck in your mind, and it's still a problem today, obviously, even in America and around the world, that started here in the USA not so long ago and now has been seen to be a problem. Our problem is infiltrated into their nations now, and so we haven't really solved the problem, apparently. And I think it goes back to the core of looking for the core of the problem. And I don't think we've ever done that, actually. I think the legislators just pass more laws and say, okay, we took care of that, let's move on. So did you feel you could personally tackle any racial problems growing up, and what were some of them?
Well, this is going to sound controversial, but I've decided when I embark on this adventure, I have to be honest, because if I'm not honest, then I'm just picking and choosing sides that fit my agenda. So the truth is that a lot of people don't really understand what racism is. It's become a word where people can just use it as a barrier, because if I use the word racism, I don't have to look what's behind that barrier. I don't have to address the problem. I don't have to look at maybe my own faults, my own weaknesses. I just use that word. Now, when I grew up as a child, I truly dealt with what racism really is, and that is that I was a black child in a white playground, I had two choices. You either survived or you got buried. And I would deal with racism in the sense that, people would walk up to me and I would they'd want to fight. They'd want to fight the black kid because it was cool. Or, I would deal with, stereotypical perceptions like, what do your parents do in Africa? Or, every day, you had to deal with it, and you either dealt with it or it suffocated you, and you just went up to a corner. And it's a terrible thing. I mean, I can remember at 6 years old being a little brown English kid that believed and knew, and everything that he knew about himself was English, sitting in a classroom with all these white kids, and the teachers reading, which was big back then, was the Enid Blyton books about the little black Sambos. And the little black Sambos were these little kids that run around and do all this silly stuff, and then, Rupert the Bear would come along and save them all. So can you imagine sitting in a classroom, being a dark kid, with all the other white kids, and all of a sudden there's this stereotypical image of you, and you're 6, 7 years old, and you have to deal with that. Now all these other kids perceive you in that light. And I mean, this is just an example. So when you deal with real racism, I mean cultural racism, it's really a difficult thing to deal with. And I think where I'm looking at right now is a lot of people that are accusing people of being racist, or a lot of people are claiming racism, have no concept of what real racism really is. But it's a great label.
I think that a lot of people don't understand it who aren't, a minority, an ethnic person, whether you're Italian and olive skin, or whether you're,
right.
Which everybody has had a problem when they came to the USA. That's why they had their little communities.
Absolutely.
Because they were discriminated against. So it's not just the blacks who felt it. It's a lot of people from other, ethnic groups who came here and felt the discrimination. And I don't think, the Jews still are discriminated against today as well.
Absolutely.
And their lives are in danger. So I think it's a worldwide issue, and racism is just a word the politicians put out there to create division, or use it to say, look what we did. We wrote a law to make everybody better. So the problem never gets resolved, like you said. So, there's discrimination. When I've seen discrimination where, a blonde and blue-eyed couple buy something and they're not asked to show any ID, and then maybe an ethnic or black person goes up there and they want to see all their ID.
I wrote
that's
about
discrimination.
that in my book. Yeah, it happened to me many times. Yeah, it happened to me many times. I wrote about it. Everyone's in line paying, and then you show up, and they're like, do you have ID? And you say, well, why do you need ID? And they go, well, it's random. I say, well, what's random about me?
Right.
So
it's prejudice, it's discrimination, they're profiling. And even in New York City, they were profiling people walking down the street who were doing nothing wrong. These are the things that cause so many problems for people to, say there's no prejudice, there's no racism, because there is, that need to be dealt with. So did you feel you could personally tackle any racial problems growing up, and what were the key ones that really bothered you?
I think what bothered me more than anything, now I had to survive them. I could give you hundreds of stories, but I had to survive them because it was either survive or just you don't survive. So the single most thing that really disgusted me most and really made me sick to my stomach was when I was maybe 8, 9 years old, and this very well-to-do white lady in some meeting. I was with a group of elderly, I don't remember what it was, but anyway, I was playing on the floor, and this very respectable white lady looked over me. I heard her talking to a friend, and she's going, I feel sorry for the children. And it just made me sick that she felt sorry for me, that she had compassion for me, because what she was saying is that I was inferior, that she, she wouldn't look at somebody that she viewed as equal to her, or somebody that, she wouldn't feel sorry for them. But for me, she felt sorry. And I think the one thing with everything that disgusts me more than anything else is when people look at me as a victim. People look at me, in their compassion. Oh, it's the brown kids I feel sorry for, or it's the black kid I feel sorry for. And I find it, just so demeaning that people look at me like that. Because if you look at me as an equal, then you wouldn't even have that conversation.
Because God is the only person that looks at hearts and doesn't look at color, and people judge people by their color, and so this began long ago. It's never been resolved, and people have been led to believe and that because you are a certain ethnicity or a race, that you must be on welfare and you are not capable of getting a college degree, and you should just be happy with SNAP food stamps and having the government taking care of you. And that makes a great country. And so these are all the issues that people need to say, not through violence, but through saying, okay, we're going to go to the core of the problem in every community that is stricken with poverty. We're going to get rid of the gangs. We're going to get rid of the drugs and the guns, and we're going to start bringing back Christian values and teach kids 10 Commandments and to go to church and get them activities and big brothers and teach dads that, you are important to the family instead of being missing in action. So, there's so many social things that are involved as well to giving people self-esteem, especially children, giving them the self-esteem they need to believe that they have the confidence to be whoever they want and be whatever they want without feeling as if they're inferior to anybody else. So tell us about your early education in England, and were there divided worlds with a younger set? Did you get bullied in school?
Well, I think the word bullied it's another perception. I could make the case I got bullied every day, but then I could also make the case that that's just how it was. I can remember cases of walking down the halls in the school and somebody bumping into me, and the next thing I'm in a fight, and then I'd go to the headmaster's office and both of us would get the cane, which you did back then. You get caned or you got slippers.
Wow.
And I'd be like, I didn't do anything. I was minding my own business. And it was like, well, you were fighting. Well, I had to fight to survive. Or I'd be in a classroom and there'd be a noise at the back, and then, I'd have to stand up and, I'd get slippered, or you'd get hit on the knuckles with a ruler or something. And it was normal. As weird as it sounds, it was normal. I never viewed it as bullying. I never viewed the name-calling as the teasing as, the lights would go out in the room and then the kids would say, oh, all I can see is your eyes and your teeth. It was teasing. It wasn't really, you didn't classify it as bullying because it was just normal life. And I think the key is for whatever reason, and I honestly believe that it's genetics. Some people, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of those, are given abilities. And sadly, I know of people that they didn't survive it, and they took all terrible alternatives. And
I agree with that. You're a survivor for sure, and you rose above all of this. And many people have had to, like Dr. Carson, I'm sure, and many others. Alan West, and you can go on and on. People who rose above it and became role models to people. That yes, anybody can actually be who they want to be if they overcome and work through it. So when did you get the idea to write your book, and Did you have an editor or a mentor that helped you with your
Well,
book?
part of it was therapy, and I thought about my life and how I survived, and I survived because I had people in my life that actually put the effort in to help me, and they didn't view me as a victim or as inferior. They actually held me accountable for my actions. And so I was sitting on the fence after this wild and crazy life that I've had, and I'm asking, do I really care about other people? I mean, I've succeeded in surviving in my life, so why don't I just live it? Why do I want to take on these other battles? And then I thought, well, if the people that really helped me had the attitude that I have, then I wouldn't have been helped. I'd have been one of those statistics in jail or in prison. And I think in life you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision on whether you're going to, try and make things better for the people that are coming next, or if you're just going to wallow in, what you have and stay in your bubble and just take care of yourself and your own. And I just have such respect for the couple of people that basically I believe save me in a sense, that I feel in a way that I'm obligated to try and pass that on, because if I can save and help, other people, then that's their legacy, and that's how legacies continue. But if I take what they did and I just keep it for myself, then their legacy dies, when I die. And I just think the struggles I went through, I think that if we're going to fix these racist problems, there has to be an awakening. There has to be a change in the mindset. It's easy to just say, okay, we got to teach these values, but how do you teach values to children that don't know any values? How do you teach values to people that don't care about values? How do you teach values to people that profit from chaos? And
that's a good question. That's a very good question, and these are answers that haven't come forward, have they?
Well, the thing is, what I've done is I've revamped the book, and what I think the biggest problem that we have to really truly address is culture versus color. So my color is I'm black on the outside, and incidentally, this is the title of my book that's going to come out on Amazon in a week or two. I'm black on the outside. I'm black on the outside, but I'm white on the inside. Okay, now I admit that. And so my battle is my color versus my culture. So what we have to decide, do we want to battle being Americans first and work on all the things we need to do as Americans, or are we going to separate ourselves? And are we going to fight based on what our color is? Or are we going to be manipulated because of our color, because of the color we are? And I think it is a color versus culture battle, and I think people need to truly assess what's more important to them, their culture and what the culture offers, meaning the freedom that America offers, the opportunity America. Or am I going to pick a side? I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm black, I'm white, and I'm just going to fight for my cause. And I think that is the central question that we need to address.
Yes, and I also agree with you as well as the poverty that goes along with it that creates a lot of problems, the high divorce rate and the poverty and the high school dropout rates and all of this. I think all need to be addressed. So in anybody's neighborhood that is impoverished and they have a more difficult time because mom's out working and she's tired, she gets home, she has a limited budget, sometimes they don't get support. So we need to really focus on those issues. You've been promoting your book for several years, this wonderful book. And and it appears in view of the recent George Floyd death, which we all agree was horrifying, in Minneapolis. But there's also white. I've seen videos. I used to work in the sheriff's department years ago, and I've seen white cops kneel on white males' necks and also beat them up too. So I mean, bad apple cops I'm talking about, not the majority. just the bad apples. There's bad apples in every profession. They need to weed them out. And it's usually they don't weed them out till they get caught, But today they have cameras, so that makes it easier. But most cops are just trying to do a difficult job. And it is difficult to deal with people on drugs and alcoholism and spousal abuse, and you don't know if they have weapons and blah. So it's very complicated. So it's not just a black and white issue. It's a complicated, convoluted issue. So there's a tremendous interest in your book and your comments about improving race relationships. So what's your take on the George Floyd death in Minneapolis?
Well, if you want me to get kicked off the radio, I'll give you my honest opinion, or do you want a political correct opinion, I'll give you the opinion.
No, I'm not a politically correct person. I will never be politically correct.
What I think about it is it's okay. Take it separately. The incident itself is a terrible thing. It shouldn't have happened.
Right.
But just as bad, I think I think this goes back before Floyd. I think the policeman in New York who jumped on the guy that was selling the cigarettes and put him in a chokehold, and then he died. This was about 5 years ago. Was also one of the most disgusting things that I've seen, and that policeman didn't get charged. The white jogger that was just jogging on the levee, and the three black kids that were bored just ended up killing him for no reason. Was absolutely disgusting. The crime, the 20 murders in Chicago last week, in one day, the 18 murders, disgusting. It's all absolutely disgusting. And what really I think I dislike more than anything else is the manipulation of the stories. It's the media will feed a story to fit an agenda. They don't care about Floyd. They don't care about, the white deaths. They don't care about the black deaths. They don't care about any of it. It's all a manipulation driven by agenda. And people get sucked into it. I watch some of these marches and people with these Floyds, and some of these people genuinely believe that they're marching for a cause, but they're not. They're marching for manipulation. Because all the other deaths and all the other tragedies, they're not mentioned. And I just think that this is a merging of rivers. So you have people at home, they're not working because of the COVID-19. So you got people sitting around going, what can we do? You've got hardcore activists using a name like Black Lives Matter, which is a really good cliche. It's a really good bumper sticker. You have the hatred of Trump, and you have all these forces merging in one point. And the Floyd is just the catalyst. It's just that little match that has exploded the whole thing. And I think what's really shameful about it is that people are very easy to look at those videos and say, oh, that's terrible, which it is, but they have no concept, or they have no interest in the other 10, 20, 30, 40 people, 50 people of black, white, whatever, that have been needlessly murdered in another scenario. So I think this whole thing, I find it offensive.
Well, I find it the same because I have, this Chicago issue and other cities where black-on-black gangs are killing each other every day.
Terrible.
And police are afraid to even go in those cities. And I know wonderful black people who tell me their stories, that, their moms would have them sleep on the floor because of the drive-by shootings, different things like this. And how scared they are and dangerous. And so, I understand that, to me, one incident shouldn't cause the terrorizing of a nation and burning down the businesses and putting more people out of business, black and white business owners and black and white people out of jobs when we already had 40 million out of jobs because of unemployment. Now, where do they think they're going to get all the taxes to fund all of the welfare recipients when over 40 million Americans are out of work? I mean, seriously, are they going to keep printing money? Are they going to, when are they going to run out of ink and everybody's equally poor? So it, like you say, it is offensive to take the law into your own hands instead of trying to correct the wrongs. And so what do you actually think about police relations in the USA? Should they be improved?
Well, I think you're talking to someone. I've been pulled over a lot. Okay, I get pulled over by the police, and I know why it is. I get profiled. I live that life, and I think it's annoying. And I got pulled over a lot in England. I mean, so I've been profiled, a lot. So I'm well familiar with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have friends who are policemen, and they're really good, hard-working, honest people. And I just think that you take anything and you take the bad eggs and you use it to it's like reverse racism. People assume that because, the color of your skin, that you're in a store and you're stealing something. People assume that because one policeman does something bad, that they're all bad. And it's a very dangerous thing. I honestly think it's like McCarthyism. I think what's happened is the word communist has been deleted and the word racist has been put in its place. And I think the terrible thing about McCarthyism was it destroyed people's lives by the mere mention of that they might know somebody or be a communist, whether it was true or not. And I think what's going on, and I think the powers to be, and I think it's intentional, are trying to use the word racism for power. And so if it means demeaning the police force and we can get power, then let's do it. If you can imagine, like my friends, can you imagine going in midnight to some call in the middle of a poor neighborhood and some poor person is getting beaten up by some crazed person on drugs, and you're sitting there and you're risking your life to go into that situation to help somebody, and you so much as do one thing wrong or something happens unpredictably, you're going to get lambasted. I'm not sure people are really aware of what's coming next if they keep going down the path they are going to come. Because you can make that phone call and that policeman is not going to come. It's going to be really bad for you. So I think the police do a fantastic job, and I think it's a very difficult job. And even though I've had run-ins...
They have to see a lot of horrible things that most people could not take care of or handle. And they know their lives are at risk. They don't know if somebody has a gun or, pulls out a gun or whatever. They have no idea what they're going into. Oh, a family's having a little dispute here. Well, it could end up in a horrible situation. So, yeah, I mean, to try and say all police, are bad apples and we need to defund them is a very dangerous path. I agree with you. So do you have anything to say about the way our president is handling Floyd death?
When somebody doesn't like you, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I'm black and white. I have lots of people may respect me and like me, and there are some people that probably dislike me. When you dislike somebody to the point, doesn't matter what you do, nothing's going to be good enough. If you talk about it, I see it with my friends, and I have lots of very good friends, and some of them are Trump haters. And then you say, well, how about employment in the black community? Oh, that doesn't matter. Or, well, how about, it doesn't matter. Everything Trump does to the Trump haters is going to be bad. So I think it's one of those scenarios where there's nothing you can do.
And what's interesting about it is that he's put more black Americans to work and ethnic Americans to work. He put everybody to work, and we were doing.
And the crime bill
we had
too was a big issue.
Oh yeah, and so they're not even. They're so brainwashed by liberal media that you cannot talk to them. They are already brainwashed into this scenario. But I think he will be reelected. I really do because what's your choice, Biden?
I think he's going to be reelected in a landslide. Even my friends, and I'm for me personally, I don't care for him. Okay, I will be honest with you. I think that I can separate his personality to his policies as a president. And if you give me options and people try to link you in with somebody because they don't want to face the facts, I think if you give me an option for Biden and to go back to the past, or Trump to kind of that I know, I don't see business owners and I don't see people wanting to turn the country over to somebody who's going to allow these anarchists to gain more power. I think people may say that in public, but I think when they get in the booth, I think the logical mind. Now, if the Democrats get rid of Biden and put up somebody else who's maybe more central, then that might be the change in option. So, but I think I agree with you 100%. If it's Biden and Trump, I think Trump will win pretty handedly.
Yeah, I think they've run out of options at this point on the left, but because they've all agreed to support the anarchists. I mean, that's obvious. They were all agreed that we need to defund the police, we need to demean the police, and get rid of border. They've been fighting to get rid of Border Patrol, ICE, and the police for 11 years now. So it's and America does not want that. I'm positive the majority of Americans don't want it.
Well, it's like I told you with my pre-war, which I've answered my own question now because I've watched history, but why would people vote themselves into demise and chaos? And that's where we're heading right now. And people are doing the same thing. And what I think it is, I honestly believe that because America is so prosperous and because people have full stomachs, that survival is not a primary function. Now people with the internet and everything, it's such an affluent country. I think people, can follow their ideology. But I think when you're in chaos and you're in war and everybody unites, you don't have that luxury. I think what we're seeing is the trust fund babies, the people that have had everything. The trust fund babies, they spend all the money because they think it's going to last forever. And it's not until they're out of money that they...
There's a lot of entitlement, a lot of young people who believe they are entitled and they don't have to work. I was working at 9 years old babysitting, and we had to earn our way. Whatever we wanted, our parents might help, but we had to earn money, and do part-time work and chores. And the kids today, they want $1,000 phone, and the parents go, okay, here's my credit card. So they're not. They haven't learned. They think they're entitled. So we're talking to David Mulatto. He's the author of Left versus Right, Black versus White, A Nation Divided, and he was born to mixed parents in London. So he's got firsthand experience in his life. So, David, do you think that your book will ever become a movie or a TV series? Or
I think so. It's possible. My life's been so diverse and interesting. But the thing is, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to. It's one of those things. I'm not sure if I'm that relevant. We'll see after there's an effigy from some tree somewhere. But I just think it's the hardest thing with all my friends that I have to try and get across to them, which is very difficult, is to look past all the imagery. If you truly view everybody as equal, I truly believe and truly live my life to the point that everybody is equal. Everybody has equal rights. Everybody, whether you're the president or the guy who's homeless down the river, our lives, no one's life is more valuable or less valuable than somebody else's life. But on the other hand, we have a right to defend ourselves and our families, and nobody has the right to come in and take. And so, one of the great things that I think right now is people believe that, different groups have different values to their lives, and therefore we put value on different lives. And I think as long as we do that, then we can pick and choose who lives and dies based on our values. And I think if we really want to fix racism and really want to fix issues, we have to look at everybody as equal to ourselves. And if we can't do that, if we look at people with empathy, if we feel sorry for this group, and if we feel angry at that group, we aren't going to fix our problems.
Yeah, I think one of the great things that could ever happen to this country is everybody just who's a legal American just calls people, Americans. I'm an American. Forget about the race and the ethnicity. That's a personal thing.
Yeah, people call me African American. I'm not African American. I'm an American. What the heck? I don't call you an Irish American or a Croatian American, or why do you call me? Because what that does, it separates me. It's like when I was adopted. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say it's a division. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was fostered, and my foster parents would say, "This is my foster child." It meant that I wasn't part of that group, that I was a visitor. And
I agree. I agree. I saw in high school, I saw a mulatto kid, and the blacks picked on him and the whites picked on him.
Yeah, you are. You're in the middle. And you know what I learned? I learned instead of having none of both worlds, that I have the best of both worlds. And, it took a while to figure that out, because you're absolutely right. And one of the things that mulatto kids need to learn, or do learn, is that you will never fit in, but you will never be accepted as white, and you will never be accepted as black. So you have to celebrate yourself as being able to be free to go to both groups, but you see it in celebrities.
But you can look at former President Obama. He's a mulatto.
Yeah.
His mother was white. His dad was black. And
right.
yet he identifies only with black. He doesn't identify with white. And that's interesting. I mean, himself, personally.
I don't agree with that. What Obama was very good at, and I'm very familiar with this, if he's in the black community, he identifies as black. But believe me, if he's in the white community, he's identifying with that community. I mean, if you look at the fact that where did he buy his houses, New York and Martha's Vineyard or somewhere, Obama was a very good chameleon. He understood that you can drift between all the groups and do very well by it. So, he's one of these people, how you sometimes can see somebody that you only see what you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good at that. He was probably one of the best politicians ever. He could make you see what you wanted to see. So if you were white, you wanted to see him as somebody that was like you, that could give you a gateway into the other side. If you were black, so he was a chameleon, and he profited it. And I get in a lot of trouble, but I'm not a fan, because what he didn't do, and I know it's controversial, but the way he left, the black community and the dreamers, and the damage in Syria and the damage that he left behind while he became very wealthy is something that if people looked at facts, I think wouldn't have such a favorable light.
Yeah, I think what you said is true. And so, now that we've come to the end of our interview, unfortunately, I want you to tell us about where we can get your books, where they're available, any websites you have. I want you to tell us about your new project, when it will be coming out, your new book, and then I'm going to ask you one more question after you give us all that good information.
Okay. Well, what I would quickly say is I really want to make a difference, and way I'm going to make a difference is you have to be honest. And I think the root of everything is that my new project is a book. It should be on Amazon next week, for ebook first and then paperback after that. It's called Black on the Outside, White on the Inside, My Color versus My Culture. And this is the question: do I align with my color, or do I align with my culture? And I think that we have to, if we're going to fix our differences, then the unity has to be that we're proud of our culture. And if you base our culture on cultures around the world, I still believe that America is, for me personally, is still the best place in the world to live, and I'm speaking for myself, obviously. There's so much fantastic stuff here. And I see people coming from all over the world just giving everything to come here. And I think people need to stop feeling guilty about their affluence, and I think they need to start looking at people, regardless of their color, as equals and, negotiate their differences. And I think then we'll have a shot. So, Amazon,
great.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead. And
I'm
your
saying,
books
so black on the outside, white on the inside, my color versus my culture. 1 week Amazon ebooks first.
Fantastic. You have to come back and talk about that. So, one last question for you, Dave.
Yeah.
Do you feel we will solve racial problems in your lifetime in the United States and worldwide, or do you believe it's an ongoing issue that will have to be preserved through the future, maintained, and looked at?
How much time do I have to answer that question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the facts of that. Racial color identification is a survival instinct. It's in all of us. Okay, I go out in the backyard and I see a white stripe on a skunk. That white stripe represents something. Color identification is a survival instinct, and it's perfectly normal. There is nothing wrong with walking down the street and seeing a black man or seeing a white man. So if you want to associate that seeing color is being a racial prejudice, then you're never going to solve it. Because if you don't see color, the person would be invisible. So I say to people, I walk down the street, I see a black man, I see a white man, I see whatever color I see, and I assess my risk based on previous encounters with the person that I'm looking at. So we can improve on racial conflicts if we accept the racial problem isn't what we see. There's nothing wrong with seeing a black man or a white man. The problem is how we act. So if I walk down the street and I don't determine my actions in a negative sense based on the color I see, then we can fix these problems. They're not that complicated. But if I'm going to sell the fact that I cannot see what I see, if I'm going to say that anybody that sees something that's black or white is now automatically a racist, it's ludicrous. So I'm saying is, or what we have to accept the fact is, color identification is a survival instinct and is perfectly normal. It's been part of our DNA since we were our first inception. So just because you see a black man or a white man doesn't make you a racist. What makes you a racist is how you act. And I think if we educate people on there's nothing wrong with being different, there's nothing wrong with being seeing somebody's color, there's nothing wrong with seeing somebody's identity. If you treat them as an equal, then we can go from there. It's not a problem. So I think we're either going to solve this or we're going to go into chaos. And it's going to be one or the other. There's going to be no middle ground. And
we
so
do have to solve it because we're in a really serious problem. We have a really serious problem right now. Very serious.
I agree. I agree. And what's serious about it is, as in pre-war Germany, decent people sold their decency because they believed that the suffering of somebody they disliked was going to get them to a better place. So this is where we're at right now, which makes it really dangerous, is because decent people with good values believe that if they accept some of the actions of the Black Lives Matter or some of these groups that are destroying everything because, in the end this will lead to a better result. That was the same belief that the German people had when they supported German nationalism. And that's what's going on now. People are selling their own, they're holding off on their own decency of what they know is right and wrong because they believe they're working towards a better cause. When you sell or suppress your own decency and you allow somebody else to destroy something of somebody else's because you think there's going to be a better future, you are doomed. Because those
I agree
people
with that, and
right.
I also want to bring in Antifa, the commie little brainwashed organization there, are armed, they have guns, they're in our streets, they have weapons, somebody supplies them bricks and so forth. And the problem there is that they've been so brainwashed and paid and funded to do this, and they believe that they're going to get everything free. They've been promised everything free. That's the other problem we have to face too, is that they truly believe that they're going to get. Because you said, the communists we're doing this too. Well, that's what they did too. They promised it was a bad time for the economy in Europe. They promised them housing and food and jobs, and look what happened to them.
But I think, there's truth to that, but I don't think that's the biggest threat, to be honest with you, because people understand that, people can see that. I think the biggest threat is the cultural. I listened to a guy on a big CEO, I think, of Reddit, saying that he was going to step down from his CEO position and make sure that a black man could get his position because that's what he wanted to do. So basically, what he's saying is that black people across the nation can't succeed on their own. Black people will only succeed if a white person allows them to, because of their benevolence. And this goes back to the thing that I hated most. This went back to people, looking at my color and determining that because of my color, I would never make it. And I just think this is when you're around kids and you're trying to teach children to be self-sufficient and to, like you say, be responsible parents, be responsible for yourselves. And then you have people at these highest, most successful walks of life saying, well, here you are, I'm going to give you my spot because without my benevolence, you're not going to make it. To me, that is far more dangerous because that's lasting. People like Antifa and groups like that, you can see that's black and white and people can react however they want. But when you indoctrinate a young child that they will never succeed unless some white, successful, compassionate person allows them to, that is true destruction. You are destroying that person's whole life. And that's where I think it's dangerous, is because now so many people, whether it's politicians, whether it's celebrities, are now taking that path and creating a whole generation of young kids that are going to believe that without white benevolence, they're never going to succeed.
And that means you're not going to be motivated. They're not going to make an effort. They're not going to get through.
Absolutely.
Do all the things that the white person did to get to that point. But they are capable of it, and that's what I believe. You're absolutely correct that we need to teach the kids. I mean, it's the kids who need to be given that self-confidence and that motivation and that effort. Because I've heard so many successful black people who said they were so poor, that it was a mentor. It was a mentor who helped them get to the point they were.
Absolutely. Clarence Thomas being a classic example.
I totally appreciate all your information and your input, and definitely, thank you for writing your wonderful, wonderful book. I hope everyone gets a copy on Amazon, Left versus Right, Black versus White, and then we'll look forward to talking to you about your new book. And thank you, and God bless you, David.
Well, thank you so much for having me, too. I believe in human nature, the goodness of it, so there's hope yet.
Yes, there's always hope. Thank you.
There's always hope.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless. Bye.
All right. Bye.
And that is true. It's like the sign I drive by every day, that the one thing they can't cancel is hope. They can't cancel love. They can't cancel God. They can't cancel the 10 Commandments. They can't cancel the good works that good people do. and fight for, which is freedom, liberty, rights, sovereignty, God, freedom to work, freedom to think, freedom to express your opinions, freedom of press. Because without those honest things, then we are not free. So never let the New World Order, Gates and Melinda and Soros and Sons and those who are involved with the New World Order create a new constitution which denies freedom, liberty, and rights, even the right to work, so that they can depopulate the planet and usher in their New World Order, microchip and enslave those who survive the euthanasia and the chemicals and the poisons and the chemtrails and so forth that are, and the radiation that is excessive even at the airports against a free people. And so that have direct adverse health effects. So ask questions, get involved with your government, and call your representatives and let them know your concerns. And 202-225-3121. Call them. Let them know your concerns. We, the people, are the government. Never forget who we are. They are not the government. We, the people, are the government. So never forget who we are. God bless you. God bless America. Stay healthy, stay happy, and remember, injustices can happen to you and they can happen to me, but together we can make a positive difference. Remember that you are never alone when you listen to Colombo Chronicles every Wednesday, 12 to 1 p.m., lunch hour. Bye-bye.
Rose Colombo is signing off, and she's left the building. Be sure to bookmark and share Colombo Chronicles Live every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. on the West Coast. Or if you're sleepless in the big city, that would be 11 to midnight on the East Coast. Rose Colombo says, remember, you're never alone when you tune in every Wednesday to Colombo Chronicles.